So the general election has been announced for the 4th of July 2024 in the UK. It's been brought forward by Rishi. Perhaps he wants to have a summer holiday without the pressure of being Prime Minister. Welcome back to Property Insight. My name is Mark Ashworth.
And I'm Neil Harding.
What does this mean for landlords? This video, by the way, is entirely our opinions about how the general election is going to affect landlords and sort of our opinions. Neither Neil or myself have decided who we're going to vote for, so this is definitely not one side or the other.
And neither of us are members of a political party.
No, and in actual fact, we kind of share the opinion that they're probably all as bad as each other anyway. So you could just literally, lick your finger and flip a coin, let's say. Anyway, let's have a chat about this. No manifestos have been published yet, so we don't really know, what the plans are. Not that they ever stick to their plans.
That's true. Just because it's in a manifesto doesn't mean it's going to happen. Of course, we know that, but we know some things from what politicians have said. Manifestos aren't published at the moment, so we might do another video in a month's time after the manifestos have been issued, or maybe the right time to do it is after who's won the election. But for the moment, we wanted to talk about what the main parties, not every single party, but what some of the main parties are saying about particularly landlord relevant areas.
Absolutely, yeah.
So let's start with abolishing Section 21.
Oh, the favourite topic of all landlords and investors in the UK right now. Well, it looks like it will be abolished, whoever you vote for, unless you vote for the Reform Party.
Yeah, they Reform have come out and said that they are keen to reverse quite a lot of the legislation that's been put in place in the past, including, they're abolishing Section 21, actually also reversing Section 24. Mm-hmm. And they're the only party, if we sort of group those two things together, obviously they're both big topics in their own right, but they're the only party that have said they pretty much want to go back to how things were before. And so whilst they've not laid out in minute detail what that actually means, it's pretty commonly understood that what they mean by that is they don't like Section 24, where, very briefly, I'm sure most people watching this will know what Section 24 is, but Section 24 is the rule that George Osborne brought in back in 2019. It began, and landlords are not able to offset mortgage interest as an expense against their rental income for property that they own in their own name. So the Reform Party don't like that. They want to go, I think they just think that actually the best way to stimulate the private rental market is to encourage landlords to the market.
The estate agent that I work with has seen lots of properties come to the market where landlords are selling property. I've actually got a property on the market at the moment for rent, and the amount of people that give the reason that the landlord is selling, I was quite surprised at.
Right.
And that's the reason why they're moving out, even to the point where I said, why isn't the landlord selling the property with you as a tenant in situ? And the reason for that is, of course, it restricts their market, because it just means that it's only open to investors. They want to be able to open it out to everybody, but
they want the best price for it.
Yeah, and whilst we understand that it brings another property back into, the owner-occupier market, absolutely. But if it takes one away from the rental market, it makes the rental market even more constrained. It has a negative effect, certainly for tenants, because it means there's less properties available, and it means that the price of them goes up. And there needs to be encouragement for investment in your normal, regular housing stock, right? Just, 2 up, 2 down type properties, which are very attractive for people who want to rent.
Basic economics, isn't it? If you provide more supply of rental properties, it's good for the market, and rents will find an equilibrium. They won't increase so aggressively, and Reform's response to that dynamic is to actually reverse Section 24 and not to put in place rent controls. The Conservatives and by and large, Labour have also said they don't want to introduce rent controls, although Labour have sometimes muddied the waters a little bit by the occasional politician making comments about how perhaps in some local constituencies there might be an argument to say that local councils may want to introduce something, it might be a good idea. but then they've sort of backpedaled from that as soon as they possibly can and said, oh no, that's not our policy. So it's a little bit muddied, but generally I think Conservative, Labour and Reform have said no, but Lib Dems and Green have said that actually they see an argument for rent controls in England. They obviously already exist in Scotland.
It's crazy, isn't it? You kind of think maybe these politicians have got no economic sense at all because it's a supply and demand thing, right?
Yeah.
You know, they're not able to control inflation. It's gone absolutely mental. Well, we all know why it's gone mental, you know, because of all the stimulation in the world and in the UK in particular during COVID means that ultimately, you know, you have to pay for it at some point, and that's what's happening. We've devalued the pound, and so therefore, you know, you get higher prices, but you can't then expect that you pay higher prices for everything, but rents go down. That kind of, you know, that doesn't work. That's not economic sense, and it completely contradicts what inflation is.
Another area is EPC. I love talking about EPC because I know you've got a bee in your bonnet about it. Energy performance certificates.
No.
So there was a lot of talk for a long time about energy performance certificates needing to be a grade C or higher, so A, B or C, in order to be legally let. The Conservatives effectively scrapped that requirement, and probably about 6 months ago. The existing requirement is that every property needs to be an E or greater, so E, D, C, B or A, and the Conservatives, we assume, will continue with that approach and that policy. However, as you can imagine, not all parties agree with that, and I suppose an obvious one is the Green Party. It's directly about being environmentally friendly, about eco-housing, etc. So the Green Party have said that not only will properties be a C, I can imagine that they'll actually increase that to a B in future years. That's my guess, by the way. I don't know for sure, but they've said that they will increase EPC ratings to a C. So have the Lib Dems, and they've said to B in 10 years. And you just think, oh, how on earth
I mean,
is that going to happen?
You know, not being funny here, Neil, but just to put it out there, this seems to be, these parties want to restrict this to rental properties. I want to know when they're going to restrict it to people that own properties, because at the moment it doesn't matter what your property is. If you own it, you can have it whatever rating you like. That just doesn't make any sense to me.
The Labour Party are also in favour of EPC grade C. What else have we got? Compulsory licensing. That's quite an interesting one. Let's talk a bit about compulsory licensing. So
at the moment we've got a situation where there are certain areas in the country and certain cities, and even, let's say, certain postcodes within cities that require you to have a licence to rent a property. Most HMOs require a licence regardless, but some single-let properties, areas, you need to have a licence. It's quite expensive, isn't it, Neil?
Yeah. I've got selective licensing in Peterborough where I invest, and that's just been introduced, a 5-year licensing scheme, and each property has cost me about £600 per property, and that's discounted. If you applied within 30 days of the scheme going live, I think it then reverts to more like £800 or £900 per property.
So who do you think really is paying for this licence fee?
Think it through as being yet another reason why landlords don't find it attractive to invest in the private rental sector and therefore are leaving the market, combined with a number of other reasons why they're leaving the market. Rents go up as a result, meaning therefore that tenants are ending effectively and directly paying for things like this and a whole load of other things, which is not good news for tenants.
Absolutely.
Or the sector generally.
I've experienced increases recently in council tax for HMOs. I mean, obviously council tax for everybody has gone up. Obviously energy bills are still high, even though they have been, you know, suppressed, and let's say they've been a bit more level now. But interestingly, when energy companies reduce prices in the summer, that doesn't really help for the winter months. Although, actually, having said that, it doesn't feel very much like summer at the moment, does it? So, you know, with added costs in terms of licensing as well, we'll see increases in rents.
I mean, the argument for it clearly is that by introducing these standards, you provide better quality housing to tenants, and therefore tenants get to live in safe, warm, secure, quality accommodation.
But have your properties that are licensed been inspected?
No, none of them.
So how?
No, not since the 2 months ago that I spent about £5,000 on getting about 8 properties licensed. Not had a single word from the council on any of them. At some point, I'm assuming they will actually contact me or my letting agent and ask if they can actually inspect any of these properties. But during COVID, I had the same thing, and a number of properties never got inspected and visited, so they just gave licenses.
I mean, I just don't know what to say.
You've lost the words. So anyway, I mean, in terms of general election and approaches, it seems like most parties actually, certainly the major parties, are in favour of some sort of register or database or compulsory licensing scheme, whether it's local government or central government. It's probably going to come in the next year or two. There'll be something.
I certainly think having some kind of register where you're a compliant landlord, or that you have to be registered on there, or you have to. Yeah, but I think it should be that you as an individual are licensed, or you hold a membership for a certain thing, as opposed to it being on each and every property.
So there's one more thing that we just wanted to mention, because quite often I read comments, you probably do, Mark, as well, on Facebook threads about how all the policies basically are self-serving interest policies, because all the politicians own properties, they're all landlords themselves, and so all the policies basically just match that. I've got to be honest, I've never fully subscribed to that idea. I don't think it's quite as self-serving as that. But we've seen some research by a company called 38 Degrees, and they've found that 87 MPs declared at least £10,000 in rental income in England in the last year. This includes almost 1 in 5 Conservative MPs and 5 members of the Cabinet. Of the 87 MPs who are landlords in England, 68 are Conservative, 16 Labour, 2 Lib Dems and 1 SNP. Just thought we'd add that just to give an idea of just how many people in Parliament actually are landlords receiving income from rental properties.
How many members of Parliament is there roughly?
I think there's 500 or so.
Right, okay.
500 plus, I think.
So it's a relatively low percentage, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, they've said, £10,000 in rental income. This includes, 1 in 5 Conservative MPs, basically. 1 in 5 Conservative MPs. The party in power at the moment are a landlord. I mean, I suppose that's a reasonable, significant number, but a minority, but a significant minority. So, but just worth sort of bearing that in mind. So, I mean, how are we going to vote? I don't know. Raving monster loony party, is that how they still go?
God knows.
But we hope that's been insightful and informative, and please do comment, like and subscribe to the channel, and we look forward to seeing you next time.